Okay, so core values for an INFP, they're built off of feeling because their introverted feeling function is the one that gives them all those values. And depending on how strongly they feel for something, they'll know if it's good or bad, and how big of a value that is. So if something makes me feel upset, I'll know that it's a value and that I'll try to avoid something like that. The thing is, I don't hold. There's a value of mine that says that I shouldn't hold other people to my own values, and then when I lost my train of thought. Yeah, I try not to hold people to my own values, but if they breach a value of mine, I'll feel uncomfortable around them depending on how intense that value is. So if someone breaches a very dear value to me, I won't want to hang out around them because it makes me feel so bad.
I think in terms of values, like I have different levels and types of values. So, some of the strictest ones are, they're rooted in morality and what I believe to be morally right and morally wrong. So, I hold myself to something that I believe to be moral, and um, even if sometimes my feelings tell me to do something else, I know that it might not be moral, so I have to hold myself to that value of mine. So my values aren't always tied to my feelings. They can be separate. They're often, linked together because something that I feel isn't moral, I would obviously feel upset if I was doing. But yeah, if somebody breaches my core values, it causes a lot of conflict, and I feel conflicted and upset when I'm around them, so they cause me bad feelings, and I don't like to be around that, so I basically just distance myself from them, and I think this is what they call the INFJ door slam. They basically, I don't know.
No, I think the INFJ door slam was that, um, um, I think on YouTube, Introvert Power explained it pretty nicely.
I'll have to look at that.
Yeah, exactly. He explained it as a sort of a place where there is no more relationship to save. So they've done something so badly that there is no more connection. But before that, every last strand is still a connection that you can try to build back up.
Yeah. Like, I don't think I've experienced a complete door slam, but I've come close. So, there's one person in particular that, they're just like hanging by a thread, like our relationship. So, I mean, it could be saved, but at the same time, it's just like it's reached a point where they need to be putting in a lot more effort to try to save this relationship because it's taking a lot of energy and, like emotion from me to try to maintain this connection or maintain this relationship and this interaction with them. So, yeah, if you reach values, then it's very hard to get back up. It can either sever all the strands or leave a couple of hanging ones, but when they're that little, it takes so much effort for me to try to maintain that relationship, and I don't see it as necessarily worthwhile anymore because they've done such a breach of my values. So usually if the relationship does get repaired, it's mostly because they're putting an effort on their part and showing me that they want to salvage whatever we have left.
There was another statement that INFJs will do everything in their power to save a relationship if they can still save it. Do you relate to that, or does it deteriorate with time?
It depends on what kind of relationship and why the relationship fell apart in the first place. If it's something that fell apart because of a misunderstanding or a general conflict, if it fell apart because, I don't know, people moved away and they're too far apart to maintain a good, amount of communication, I will feel really upset if I feel the relationship falling apart, and I'll try to salvage it. And so I'll go out of my way to do things. I feel like I would, go through a lot to salvage a relationship, and I also, yeah, even if it's something that doesn't necessarily appeal to me, like I'll do it anyway to try to fix the relationship. I'll make sacrifices for the other person. Like I'll try really hard for a really long time, and it doesn't really, like, the need to fix the relationship doesn't really deteriorate, but it is very different if they've actually breached, like, one of my core values, because at that point, I feel hurt by their presence, and it takes that much more effort for me to try to fix something where I feel, hurt by that person's presence.
Okay. Yeah, and there was another thing about introverted and extroverted feeling that I just came up with is the how you see a connection between a person, between two people, a relationship. We said that extroverted feeling saw the connection, the actual link between two people and then the other person, while the introverted feeler sees more the two people and no link. And they see how the effect that one has on the other.
That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, what the first thing that comes to mind is, a really close friend of mine and her boyfriend, and when the two of them are together and around each other, I just see them as like a big unit. They just kind of, they're one ball of fluffy cuddliness. And, that's pretty cool. And then, like, if I look at it, I'll tease apart, like, oh, she's feeling more like this, or he's feeling more like that. But, yeah, I see them as the link between them. I see them as what they're feeling towards each other in the moment. That's the first thing that I pay attention to, basically.
Interesting. I guess, yeah, introverted feelers just don't see that at all. They don't see any connection, really. They see the effect that one has on the other. So, to a certain extent, they're very aware of the effect that they could have on the other person, but they're not working for a relationship. They're either working for themselves or for the other person. And if they're working for themselves, it might be to be able to work better for the other person. But it's not always really apparent to them that they're working for that link. So yeah, it can also make them feel a bit disconnected and not really aware of the interconnection of people, but they'll be very aware of the other person. And I think that to extroverted feelers would be very special because extroverted feelers aren't always aware of themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, we're really not. Like, we don't get our own feelings because we're extroverted feelers, so we just feel outwardly and by proximity. And then we don't get our own bodily functions because we're extroverted sensors and it's inferior, so we have no idea what's going on with ourselves ever. It's like a little radar beacon and you just have a blind spot in the center.
And that's you.
Yes!
Great!
I'm a blind spot.
Oh no.
People that actually can tell what they're feeling is impressive to me.
Really?
Yeah. Like, you can just tell.
Yeah. And I can tell in such detail, too. And that's always hard to express because no one else can understand it in such detail. Yeah, there was connecting to that with the link and everything. Extroverted feelers are more likely to be sacrificing their needs for the needs of the many, while introverted feelers... Isn't that a Three Musketeers thing?
No.
Oh no!
The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or the one.
Oh. Although the Three Musketeers is a good contrast between an FI and an FE talking. All for one and one for all?
Oh yeah.
Anyway, yeah, the introverted feelers are more likely to sacrifice themselves for only one other person because they're usually they can only focus on one other person or maybe two, but after that it's really too much to ask to be in touch with so many other people. So, I don't know, I've heard from a lot of extroverted feelers that they're very frustrated by introverted feelers because they never really sacrifice themselves for the good of the many.
Yeah, it can, yeah, if you don't understand where they're coming from, it does look a bit selfish to us. They just sit there feeling their own thing, and then somebody else is maybe, needing something, and you don't sacrifice yourself for them. It feels awkward because we have to sacrifice ourselves for them. Like, that's how we fix the conflict. And it's not really like the sacrifice yourself for others isn't always like a conscious decision. It's not always me stepping back from the situation and going, well, all right, I'm going to have to do this unpleasant thing, but it's going to benefit the needs of the many. It's more like, somebody sits down and they're upset, and all of a sudden my brain switches over and goes, all right, this person's upset, we're fixing that one. And you just kind of go from there. And, sometimes it takes away your time, it takes away your energy, maybe it takes away your money, depending on what the heck you need to be doing, but it's okay in the end because you help them. And, introverted feelers don't always seem to have that type of immediate let's fix it reaction, and it can come across as selfish or strange. It feels to me as if the introverted feeler doesn't really care about the situation in that sense.
I think it's also more because introverted feelers like to spend some time with the emotions that they feel, even if it's for spending time with the emotions of another person, to assess the situation before they actually take action and try to understand them the best they can. I guess it's almost a value for me that I want to be able to do my best to understand the other person. So, yeah, maybe it could even be that when they look like they're brooding on their own emotions, it might be the emotions of another person somewhere around there. So they're all like, what is this person feeling? What would it feel like for me to feel that way, and all that. And yeah, I don't know. We don't.
Yeah,
Once,
kind
yeah.
of fix on the go. I feel
Exactly,
the
and
need
that
to
can
get in there as soon as possible because I feel the need to do something as soon as possible since it does affect me.
and that can feel offensive to introverted feelers because we feel like we're just being pushed out of the way almost. Oh, you're upset. Let's fix you. Okay, you're good. You're good to fit into the group. Thanks a lot.
Sometimes it does get to a conveyor belt of emotional fixing
Yeah,
almost. Like you have to work so fast. If everybody suddenly gets upset, then you're just like, all right, you next, and then you just,
I think
try to take care of everybody.
yeah, I think that's also more offensive to dominant feelers, extroverted or introverted, because they place a lot more emphasis on what the what they're feeling and what others are feeling, and they place emphasis on their emotions instead of other things like ideas or passing on of good feelings, like good sensations or something like that. Yeah, it feels like we're almost pushed out of the way. We're called a bother without even being called anything. So yeah.
See, that's sad to know because like the main reason why we're acting in the first place is to make you feel better.
Exactly. Yeah, and there's like different ways that we like to be comforted. Like extroverted and introverted feelers like to be comforted.
Yeah, so those are some of the ideas of FI versus FE and some of the misconceptions about them as well, since they can come off as very different than they actually are, and a lot of times INFJs and INFPs will, they're both intuitives and they're both they both act in similar ways, so you tend to get into this rut of thinking, oh, they're like me, so this is perfectly fine, and it turns out that they actually think almost backwards compared to you, and then you have to be willing to work through that and be willing to understand that. So I guess we'll say goodbye for now, and see you in another video.
Yep.
Hang on, we'll say goodbye. Bye. Oh, this cat does not want to.
No. There we go.